Rosemary was a poor widow who worked as a school cleaner for 9 years to train and take care of Judy, her 10-year-old daughter. She had no one else, no family to support her. Her husband died when she was 5 months pregnant, leaving her with nothing but debts. For 9 long years, Rosemary cleaned the school every day. She swept the floors before sunrise, mopped the classrooms before the students arrived, and scrubbed toilets until her hands were sore and bleeding. She never complained. Every stroke of the broom, every drop of sweat, was an unspoken promise to the memory of her late husband, and to the future of her only child. Each morning, while other children arrived in luxury cars wearing neat uniforms and expensive shoes, Rosemary quietly entered through the back gate with her small daughter, Judy, who held a borrowed backpack. Judy was 10 years old, and her bright eyes seemed to bring light and hope into their simple, difficult life. Judy didn't know how deep her mother's struggle ran. She only knew that they had little, but they had each other. And that was enough, for now. But Rosemary knew it couldn't be enough forever. She had watched from the shadows as children her daughter's age spoke languages she had never heard, played instruments she couldn't afford, and dreamed dreams she feared would always remain out of reach for Judy. That fear became unbearable one evening when Judy came home clutching a torn piece of notebook paper covered in scribbled math problems. "Mama," she said softly, "I solved them all." Rosemary looked at the numbers, then at her daughter's face, glowing like a candle in the dark. That night, she made a decision that would change both their lives forever. It wasn't easy for Rosemary to get the arrangement. She spent weeks trying to build up the courage to talk to the school owner, a strict woman whose decision could either give her hope or crush it. On a Tuesday morning, Rosemary finally went to speak with her. Her voice trembled as she told her story. She had no one else, no family to help her raise her daughter. Her husband had died when she was 5 months pregnant, leaving her with nothing but debts and a dream that their child would grow up and break free from the poverty that had held their family down for generations. The proprietor listened with her arms crossed and a serious look on her face. She said education was costly. The school had rules to follow, registrations, fees, and standards to keep. But something in Rosemary's eyes that day, maybe the deep, desperate love of a mother, touched the proprietor's heart and changed her mind. After hours of pleading, the proprietor finally agreed, but under strict conditions. Judy could attend classes but would not receive official recognition. No records would be kept. No questions would be asked about her presence. And most importantly, Rosemary would double her cleaning duties to compensate for this unprecedented exception. The relief that washed over Rosemary was so overwhelming that she nearly collapsed. She grabbed the proprietor's hands and whispered words of gratitude that came from the deepest part of her soul. This was her daughter's chance, perhaps the only one she would ever get. From that day forward, Judy became a ghost in the hallways of Wellsprings International School. She wore the same pink dress every day, carefully washed and ironed by her mother's loving hands. While other children carried expensive lunchboxes and wore polished shoes, Judy carried only her borrowed books and a hunger that went beyond the need for food. She would slip into classrooms just as lessons began, sitting in the back corner where shadows gathered. Her presence was so quiet, so unassuming, that most teachers barely noticed her. But those who did were struck by the intensity with which she absorbed every word, every lesson, every fragment of knowledge that was offered. The school owners had made their position clear from the beginning. Judy's presence must remain a secret. It would be complicated, they warned, if parents discovered that a cleaner's daughter was sharing classrooms with their privileged children. The delicate social fabric of the school community could not withstand such revelations. So Rosemary watched from the shadows as her daughter bloomed in silence. She would peek through classroom windows during her cleaning rounds, her heart swelling with pride as she witnessed Judy's hand shooting up to answer questions, her small voice cutting through the air with wisdom that seemed far beyond her years. While other children went home to tutors and comfortable study rooms, Judy's education continued under the flickering light of street lamps. She would sit on the concrete steps outside their tiny apartment, using pieces of chalk to work through problems on scraps of cardboard. Her textbooks were borrowed, her notebooks were thin and worn, but her mind was a vault that treasured every piece of knowledge she encountered. The teachers began to whisper among themselves about the mysterious girl in pink. She never spoke unless spoken to, never drew attention to herself, yet her understanding of complex concepts was remarkable. During mathematics lessons, she would solve problems in her head while others struggled with calculators. In literature classes, she would recite passages from memory, her voice carrying the weight of someone who truly understood the power of words. But perhaps most remarkable was her silence about her own circumstances. While other children complained about difficult homework or challenging tests, Judy faced every academic obstacle with quiet determination. She never mentioned the empty lunch bag, the worn-out shoes, or the mother who scrubbed floors just so she could be there. The other students began to notice her too. Some were curious about the girl who never seemed to have parents at school events, who never joined them for lunch, who disappeared as quickly as she appeared. Others were intimidated by her brilliance, whispering that she must be getting special help from somewhere. In her second year at the school, something extraordinary happened. When the term results were announced, Judy's name appeared at the top of her class. Not second place, not third, but first. The teachers stared at the results in disbelief, checking and rechecking their calculations. How could a child with no official enrollment, no extra tutoring, and no educational privileges outperform students who had every advantage? The answer lay in the pure power of determination and the sacrificial love of a mother who believed in her daughter's potential. But there was no celebration for Judy that day. No applause, no recognition, no proud parents taking photographs. She simply received her results in silence, her small hands trembling as she held the paper that proved what her mother had always known, that brilliance could shine through any circumstance. This pattern continued for 3 consecutive terms. Judy would top her class, the teachers would shake their heads in amazement, and life would continue as if nothing extraordinary had happened. She was a ghost student achieving real results, a secret star whose light was hidden from the world. Rosemary would find these result sheets tucked into Judy's borrowed backpack, and each time, she would hold them close to her heart and weep. These were not just grades on a paper. They were proof that her sacrifice meant something, that her daughter's future was brighter than the floors she scrubbed every day. As months turned into years, the weight of keeping such a monumental secret began to take its toll on everyone involved. The teachers struggled with the ethical implications of having such a brilliant student receive no recognition. The proprietor found herself checking on Judy's progress more frequently, her initial reluctance replaced by genuine concern for the girl's future. But it was Rosemary who carried the heaviest burden. Each day, she watched other parents beam with pride as their children received awards and recognition. She saw mothers and fathers cheering in the audience during school events, their faces glowing with joy and accomplishment. The isolation was crushing. Judy had no friends who knew her true story, no classmates who understood her struggle. She was surrounded by learning but starved of the human connection that comes from being truly seen and valued. Yet she never complained, never asked why she couldn't be like the other children. The school community remained blissfully unaware of the miracle happening in their midst. They saw only what they expected to see, a cleaner doing her job and well-dressed children receiving the education their parents paid for. The possibility that extraordinary talent could emerge from such humble circumstances was beyond their imagination. As Judy's third year at the school progressed, whispers began to circulate more insistently. Some parents started asking questions about the mysterious girl in pink. A few teachers began to feel uncomfortable about the situation, wondering if they were doing the right thing by maintaining such secrecy. The annual prize-giving ceremony was approaching, and with it, the most significant challenge yet. How could the school acknowledge academic excellence while ignoring their most exceptional student? How could they celebrate achievement while keeping their greatest achievement hidden? Rosemary sensed that change was coming. She could feel it in the way the proprietor looked at her, in the whispered conversations that stopped when she entered a room, and in the growing tension that seemed to fill the school corridors. Something was building, like storm clouds gathering on the horizon. The time had come for truth to shine, regardless of the consequences. The stage was set for a confrontation that would challenge everything the school community believed about worth, potential, and the power of a mother's love. The secret that had been carefully guarded for 3 years was about to explode into the open, and nothing would ever be the same again. The morning of the annual prize-giving ceremony dawned with an unusual tension that seemed to electrify the air at Wellsprings International School. Parents began arriving in the early afternoon, their expensive cars forming a parade of success in the school parking lot. Mothers wore their finest dresses and jewelry, and fathers straightened their ties with the confidence of men who had conquered the world. They carried cameras and flowers, their faces glowing with anticipation for their children's achievements. Rosemary watched from the kitchen window as these families gathered, their laughter and chatter filling the air with warmth and belonging. She had cleaned this hall countless times, but today it felt different. Today, she was not just a cleaner preparing a space. She was a mother whose heart was about to break open with either joy or devastation. Judy had been told by the school administrators that she should not attend the ceremony. Her presence would raise questions that no one was prepared to answer. She was instructed to wait outside, to remain invisible as she had always been, while others celebrated achievements that paled in comparison to her own. The cruelty of this exclusion was almost unbearable. Here was a child who had outperformed every student in her class, who had done so without any of the advantages her peers enjoyed, and yet she was being treated like a shameful secret that needed to be hidden from view. Rosemary knelt beside her daughter, taking the small, trembling hands in her own work-worn palms. The contrast between their hands told the entire story. One set roughened by years of labor, the other smooth but marked by the invisible scars of rejection and exclusion. In that moment, Rosemary made a decision that would change everything. She looked into her daughter's eyes and spoke words that carried the weight of prophecy. "Just wait, my child. The world will speak for you today." An hour later, the headmaster, a distinguished man whose voice carried the authority of decades in education, welcomed the gathered families with warmth and pride. Award after award was presented to beaming children who walked across the stage to thunderous applause. Parents rose to their feet, cameras flashed, and the air filled with the sound of celebration. Each achievement was met with the recognition it deserved, each child basking in the glow of their family's approval. Rosemary continued her work in the background, but her eyes kept drifting to the small figure she could see through the window, Judy, sitting alone on the steps outside, watching the celebration from which she was excluded. The teachers who had worked with Judy over the years shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They knew the truth about the girl outside, and the weight of that knowledge was becoming unbearable. How could they celebrate academic achievement while ignoring the most remarkable student they had ever encountered? As the ceremony reached its climax, the headmaster approached the microphone to present the most prestigious award of the day, the prize for the best overall student. The hall fell silent with anticipation. Parents leaned forward in their seats, certain that their child would be called to receive this highest honor. But instead of immediately announcing the winner, the headmaster paused. His expression grew serious, almost troubled, as he surveyed the crowd before him. When he finally spoke, his words carried a weight that no one in the audience was prepared for. He began to tell a story that would shatter every assumption in that room. He spoke of a girl who had no official enrollment, no registration forms, and no place in their carefully ordered world. Yet this same girl had consistently outperformed every officially enrolled student, achieving excellence that defied every expectation. The audience stirred with confusion and curiosity. Whispers began to ripple through the crowd as parents tried to understand what they were hearing. Who was this mysterious student? How was such a thing possible? The headmaster continued, his voice growing stronger with each revelation. He spoke of broken pencils and borrowed books, of homework done on cardboard under streetlights, of a brilliance that shone despite every obstacle placed in its path. The moment of ultimate truth arrived like a thunderbolt. The headmaster revealed that this exceptional student was the daughter of someone they all knew but had never truly seen. She was the child of the woman who had cleaned their floors, who had remained invisible while ensuring their comfort. The gasps that filled the hall were audible, a collective intake of breath that seemed to suck all the air from the room. Parents turned to look at each other with expressions of shock and disbelief. How could this be possible? How could the daughter of a cleaner outshine their own privileged children? Some faces showed embarrassment as they realized how they had overlooked and dismissed someone who had been among them all along. Others displayed confusion, struggling to reconcile their assumptions about class and ability with this stark reality. The headmaster's words continued to fall like hammer blows on the consciousness of his audience. He spoke of sacrifice and determination, of a mother who had given everything so that her daughter could have a chance at education. He painted a picture of dedication that put their own comfortable lives into sharp perspective. When the headmaster finally spoke the name, Judy Stephen, the silence that followed was deafening. Every eye in the hall turned toward the doors, searching for the girl who had been hidden in plain sight for 3 years. A few parents exchanged confused glances. Others stared at the head teacher, waiting for him to say it was a joke. But he didn't. Instead, he repeated it with pride. Judy Stephen, a student who has never been on our records, but whose brilliance has outshone them all. A few teachers clapped hesitantly at first. Then more joined in, until the sound swelled into thunderous applause that filled every corner of the hall. Judy stepped forward slowly, her small feet barely making a sound against the marble floor. Rosemary wanted to run to her, to hold her tight, to shield her from the stares and whispers. But she couldn't move. Her body was heavy with years of silence, of hiding, of sacrifice. And now, the truth stood before everyone, not as a burden, but as a beacon. As Judy reached the stage, something unexpected happened. A woman in the front row stood up. It was one of the wealthiest parents in the school, known for her sharp tongue and even sharper opinions. She walked up to the stage and said clearly, "This girl deserves more than just an award. She deserves recognition." Then another parent stood. And another. One by one, people began rising from their seats, not just in respect, but in admiration. That day changed everything. The following day, the school made an announcement. Judy would no longer be a ghost in the halls. She was officially enrolled. Full scholarship, uniforms, books, and meals, all provided. Teachers who once ignored her now called her name with pride. Classmates who never noticed her suddenly wanted to sit beside her. But not everyone was happy. Some parents were furious. They argued that allowing a cleaner's daughter into the school set a dangerous precedent, that it undermined the system they paid so much to maintain. They threatened to pull their children out. And then came the twist no one saw coming. One bright morning, the school owner called Rosemary and Judy into her office. The room was silent. Without a word, she handed Judy a sealed envelope. Judy opened it slowly, her heart pounding. Inside was a single sheet of paper, simple in appearance, but life-changing in meaning. Words leapt from the page like beams of light: scholarship, university, full sponsorship. Each one sparkled with the promise of a future she had only dared to dream of. But this wasn't just any scholarship. It was a 100% sponsorship, covering every level of her education, from that day until the day she wore a graduation gown from the university of her dreams. The letter came from a prestigious international organization known for discovering and supporting talented children from poor communities. And now, they had found Judy. A girl who once sat in silence at the edges of classrooms was being invited to the world stage. The news spread quickly. More donations came in, not only for Judy, but also for other children facing the same struggles. People began to ask questions about education, fairness, and how many other smart kids were being overlooked and ignored. Years later, Judy left Wellsprings International School with a heart full of dreams and a head full of knowledge. She was no longer the girl in the pink dress who sat silently in the back of the class. She was now a young woman with fire in her spirit and purpose in her soul. With the scholarship she received, Judy traveled far beyond the walls of that school. She studied hard, not just for herself, but for every child who had ever been told they didn't belong. She chose to study medicine, driven by a desire to heal and help others who, like her family, had been overlooked and underserved by society. Her academic performance at university was nothing short of extraordinary, earning her recognition as one of the most promising medical students of her generation. Throughout her university years, Judy never forgot where she came from or the woman who had made her success possible. She would return home during holidays, still finding her mother in the same modest apartment. But now Rosemary carried herself with a dignity that had been recognized and celebrated by the world. After completing her medical degree with highest honors, Judy pursued further specialization, eventually earning a doctoral degree that established her as an expert in her field. The graduation ceremony was a moment of profound triumph, not just for Judy, but for everyone who had believed in her potential when others could not see it. Rosemary, dressed in her finest clothes, watched with tears streaming down her face as her daughter received recognition for achievements that had seemed impossible just a few years earlier. The woman who had once been called simply the cleaner was now introduced as the mother of Dr. Judy Stephen. The transformation was complete, but the story was far from over. Judy had not achieved success simply for personal gain. She had a vision for how her abilities could serve others who found themselves in circumstances similar to those she had once known. Dr. Judy Stephen's first major act after completing her education was to establish a private hospital in her hometown. But this was not just any medical facility. It was a place specifically designed to serve those who had been forgotten by the traditional healthcare system. She established a hospital named Queen Rosemary Hospital. The hospital, which she named after her mother, offered free medical services to patients who could not afford treatment elsewhere. Special attention was given to children, reflecting Judy's understanding of how early intervention could change the trajectory of a young life. The same woman who once scrubbed floors until her hands bled was now honored in letters of gold above the entrance of a place where the poor could walk in and receive care without fear, without shame, and without cost, especially children. Word spread quickly. People came from all over. Mothers carried their sick babies through the doors, eyes filled with hope. Children who had never seen a doctor before walked out with medicine, smiles, and strength. Judy's story did not end with medicine. Love found her in the most unexpected way. At a global education summit, she met a man who listened more than he spoke. He was a billionaire, an international business mogul known for his sharp mind and quiet kindness. They talked for hours about life, about justice, about the world they wanted to build together. Months later, they married, not for money or fame, but for purpose. Their wedding was a celebration that brought together people from all walks of life. The same hall at Wellsprings International School where Judy had once been excluded was now the venue for a reception that honored her journey from invisible student to celebrated doctor. Rosemary, dressed in royal blue and beaming with pride, watched as her daughter married someone who appreciated not just her success, but the struggle that had shaped her character. Together, Judy and her husband expanded the Hidden Brilliance Initiative across the continent. Schools were built. Scholarships were offered. Thousands of children rose from the shadows, just like Judy once did. And Rosemary? Oh, how the world changed for her. No longer just the cleaner. No longer invisible. She was now known as Mummy Queen, a title given to her by the children who passed through the hospital bearing her name. Every morning, people greeted her with joy. The head of schools invited her to speak at graduations. Students wrote essays about her. Sometimes what you clean in secret will one day shine in public. True greatness is not born in privilege, but in perseverance. A mother's love can build bridges where the world has built walls. A mother's love and sacrifice can change the destiny of a child and generations to come. Rosemary gave everything she had, her strength, her dignity, her time, to give her daughter a future. Her relentless love became the foundation for Judy's success, proving that true power doesn't come from wealth or status, but from selfless devotion. Brilliance knows no background. Talent can shine even in the darkest corners if given a chance. Judy was never on the school records, but she outperformed everyone with nothing more than borrowed books and broken pencils. Her journey reminds us that potential exists everywhere. It only needs an opportunity to rise. The world may try to hide your light, but if you keep shining, one day it will see you. 4 years, Judy remained unseen, unheard, and unrecognized. But she never stopped learning, never stopped believing. And when the moment came, she didn't just win a prize, she changed a system. Your value cannot be erased by silence or exclusion. Keep going. The world will speak your name one day. This story reminds us to fight for our dreams, honor those who lift us, and never underestimate the quiet ones among us. They might just be the next great light. If this story moved your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories that inspire hope, courage, and change. Because sometimes, the greatest journeys begin with a single act of love. Thank you very much for watching.